recovery operation, several bodies retrieved from Westgate Mall. No turning back. Sudanese president says subsidy cancellation is aimed at saving the country from economic meltdown. No official tally yet. Guinea's Electoral Commission delays the announcement of parliamentary poll results. Hello and welcome to Africa Live, where we bring you African and global news from all perspectives. I'm Famida Miller. Now, I'm also coming up in the next half hour. Striking AMCU members have gathered to protest planned retrenchments of over 3,000 workers. And an African football body says the continent should have more slots at the World Cup. We begin here in Kenya, where several bodies have been recovered from the wreckage of the Westgate Mall. This follows a brutal attack by Islamist extremists last month, which led to the partial collapse of the shopping complex. As many as 9 bodies have been retrieved from the rubble, some badly damaged in the intense fire that gutted part of the complex. It's not immediately clear if the bodies recovered have already been included in the official toll of 67 dead, including 61 civilians and 6 Kenyan troops, or if they could be among the 28 people listed as missing by the Red Cross. Kenyan officials have said 5 attackers were killed, but it's not clear if all or any of those bodies have been recovered. Families of those missing have been called to the capital's central mortuary to provide DNA samples to help identify unclaimed bodies. Somalia's Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab claimed responsibility for last week's attack on the shopping mall. Now, let's speak to Jane Keogh, who's on the line from outside Westgate Mall. Jane, what have you gathered on the ground regarding those bodies being retrieved?
Famida, I'm actually at the city, at the Capital Center mortuary, and what I can tell you is I did speak to the chief pathologist, and he says so far they have, right now here at the mortuary, they have 7 unclaimed bodies. Now, this includes the 2 bodies of the KDF soldiers, which were retrieved on Tuesday, and 5 others, he says, were brought in on Sunday. Now, they are contradicting reports on the exact number of bodies, as he said. Now, that's because information about all this is still very much scanty. Now, some reports suggest that several other bodies have also been retrieved from the rubble today, but we are yet to confirm that. Now, Famida, I can also tell you that we are getting reports even from the mortuary attendants here and the chief pathologist that some of these bodies are not recognizable and some are burnt beyond recognition, of course, by the fire that gutted part of the building.
Now, Jane, family members, as we know, have been called to provide DNA samples to help in the identification process of those bodies. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, basically, the families of those with those of missing people had been asked to come here at the mortuary to provide DNA samples that will help identify the bodies. Now, so far I can tell you, Famida, it's been a slow process. We've not spotted any of these family members, but that's because we've not been allowed entry into the mortuary compound. So we really don't know what exactly is going on behind the doors here at the city mortuary. What I can tell you is we've actually spotted several international experts, those from Interpol and Scotland Yard, who are still doing some work here at the mortuary. Now, we spoke to the chief pathologist, and he said that the DNA testing and the post-mortem of the bodies that are still here is still going on, with or without the families at the moment. And what they're going to do is that once those with missing people come and try and identify the bodies, they'll just try and match up. Remember, the Kenya Red Cross says that at least 39 people are still missing. Famida?
All right, Jane, thank you very much for that update. Jane, who is at the Central Mortuary in Nairobi, giving us an update following the retrieval of several bodies from Westgate Mall. Meanwhile, the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has again expressed his condolences to the people of Kenya following that attack. While meeting with Kenya's Foreign Affairs Minister Amina Mohammed at the UN headquarters in New York, Ban offered to provide Kenya with any support the UN could provide. The Somali militant group Al-Shabaab's claimed responsibility for the attack, which killed 67 people. Ban also thanked Kenya for its support in helping to stabilize Somalia. Kenya's Deputy President William Ruto's trial at The Hague resumes on Wednesday He's charged with crimes against humanity in the 2007-2008 post-election violence. Ruto's case was adjourned to allow him to attend to state matters in Kenya following the terror attack. The trial will resume with the testimony of witness 536, who was a victim of the Kiamba church arson on January 1st, 2008, which claimed 35 lives. The appeals chamber is also expected to make a ruling on the prosecution's challenge to a decision by the trial judges allowing Ruto to skip some of the sessions. Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir says the fuel price hikes, which sparked deadly protests last week, are aimed at saving Sudan from economic meltdown. In an address to a graduating class of military and state security officers, Bashir made reference to what he described as conspiracies against the country. On September 23rd, the government cut petrol subsidies, driving up pump prices by more than 60%. The move is part of a series of measures that aim to stabilize an economy plagued by inflation and a weakening currency. This started in 2011 when South Sudan seceded, taking with it most of Sudan's previous oil production revenues. The lost oil production accounted for Khartoum's main export earnings. Meanwhile, various leaders from Khartoum have been trying to analyze the impact of the fuel protests. Some are defending the demonstrators, saying the country is rife with corruption, but others say the violence is unjustified.
Removal of subsidies on fuel is just a spark. There are many reasons making people come to the streets. The deteriorating economic situation for more than 20 years, then the deterioration of health conditions, the deterioration of social situation, security situation, and lack of availability of services that must be provided from the government to the public.
Increase in fuel prices have reflected negatively on all prices in the country and made people suffer a lot. Besides that, there's a lot of corruption all over the country, while there's no money for the government budget. So people went to the streets.
The police headquarters in Khartoum did not give any instruction to shoot on the protesters because the police forces were in control of the situation. What happened in the first and second day exceeded all expectation to sabotage people's property. More than 38 gas stations burned completely and all the police departments in Khartoum were attacked.
Guinea's electoral commissions delayed the release of results from Saturday's legislative election polls by 72 hours. This comes amid allegations of vote rigging by the opposition. An opposition spokesperson claims some votes are being counted multiple times and parallel commissions have been set up to falsify voting tallies. Guinea's electoral commission said on Tuesday it would not consider accusations of electoral fraud until a final tally of votes cast on September 28th was established. Balance sheets with results from certain districts were still being transported from polling booths on Tuesday. Under Guinea's election law, the Supreme Court has to approve the final results within 10 days of polls closing.
We ask the opposition to only act within the framework of our agreement and to only appeal through mechanisms laid down by the settlement of various litigations.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back. Conviction upheld Morsi-era Prime Minister to serve his one-year prison sentence.
We follow the latest trends in global politics, economics, culture and sport, and how Africa fits into the global picture. You decide what's important.
The need for trade and justice.
Africa's future will be determined by Africa.
For women's equal opportunity, for a better life.
We have to change something, and it's not the outsiders.
Talk Africa, a new voice for the world.
Welcome back. Let's now move to Egypt, where a Cairo court upheld a ruling against former Prime Minister Hisham Kandil. Kandil was convicted 6 months ago of obstructing justice, and now an appeal court has upheld his one-year prison sentence. CCTV's Adil Marouki has more.
Hisham Andil had still been prime minister when he was convicted. He'd ignored a court order to renationalize a weaving company sold by the Mubarak administration. Andil's lawyer says he couldn't implement the ruling as the company's shares had been sold in the stock market. But the appeal court ruled the jail sentence must stand.
This was the second appeal held. The verdict takes place effective immediately, and Kardil has no option but to go to prison.
Some believe the pursuit of Andil is political.
Honestly, obstructing justice is a crime. But when it comes in this particular time, many see we could let it go. It happened many times before with many politicians and officials, but they were never arrested. So it has a political angle within.
But other analysts disagree. Andil was minister for only a few months and had not been Morsi's first choice.
The verdict wouldn't have any impact on the current government and the Muslim Brotherhood conflict because Kandil is not from the top leaders of the Brotherhood. So if the negotiations are still ongoing, Kandil wouldn't matter.
The court has still to deliver an arrest warrant to the Interior Ministry. Andil's whereabouts are not clear. Since Morsi was ousted, Hisham Andil stayed here at his house. He only left on Monday after the court announced its final verdict, and no one knows where he went. Experts say that if the authorities did not arrest him within the next 5 years, the charges will be dropped and he will not have to go to prison. But it will not be easy for the former prime minister to stay out of sight that long. Adil Mahroui, CCTV, Cairo.
Now, for more on the story, let's speak to Adil Mahroui. He's standing by in Cairo. Adil, what's the reaction to the appeal court upholding this conviction?
Well, there hasn't been any serious reactions from the pro-Morsi camp. There hasn't been any protests, or at least not directed particularly to condemn this court verdict. But there have been some analysts who have been viewing this as a political attempt or a political move against the former prime minister, who have been staying in Egypt. And so far what we know is that he still is in the country, but his exact location has not been announced. He left his house without saying where he went. Some analysts believe that he might be in 6th of October city, which is on the outskirts of Cairo, but we don't know yet what will he do. So far, he did not surrender himself to the authorities to start or to be subject for the court verdict. And the authorities, on the other hand, they will launch a search and arrest warrant within the coming few days.
All right, Adil, also the EU's foreign policy chief, Catherine Ashton, is due in Cairo today. Do we have details on that visit and who she'll be meeting?
Well, she has already arrived, and she has already also met the Egyptian foreign minister. She also met with Mr. Amr Moussa, who is the chief of the 50 members committee that is responsible for writing Egypt's final draft or new draft of the constitution. She has a very busy schedule. She will meet interim President Adli Mansour. She will meet Defense Minister Abdel Fattah Sisi as well. Also, after a few hours, maybe 6 hours from now, she's scheduled to meet leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood, or at least those who have not been arrested yet. Two of the Muslim Brotherhood leaders, Mr. Darrag and Mr. Bishr, both are responsible for holding the mediation talks. They have been for quite some weeks, and she is going to meet them tonight to try to convince the Muslim Brotherhood and the anti-coup alliance, the group of politicians and political parties supporting the Muslim Brotherhood. The EU wants to convince them to join the Egyptian transition, something that they say they will not accept unless President Morsi returns to power.
All right, Adil, we'll leave it there. Thanks very much for that update. We're speaking there to Adil Mahroui live in Cairo. Now, the number of rhino killed by poachers in South Africa has hit a new annual record, raising concerns of a downward population spiral in a country that's home to almost all of Africa's rhinos. According to the Environmental Affairs Department, by the end of September, 704 rhino had been killed by poachers. This trend puts the species on the brink of a population decline that the department has said could lead to the extinction of wild rhino in about a decade.
Our appeal is that for all South Africans, for all people of the world, to work together with us. If we lose our rhinos in South Africa, the whole world loses. We believe that we will try, making our interventions, spending our resources, but the war cannot be won within our shores.
Work is underway to dramatically improve the water supply in Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. The city's old networks failed to keep pace with its expanding population, and for many, it's been a daily struggle to find clean water. CCTV's Farai Mwakatuya has more.
More than a third of the people in Harare must take a daily walk to find water. And Mavuku is one of the worst affected suburbs.
More than 10 years. It's been more than 10 years since we started facing these problems. We're struggling here in Mavuku. We don't even know if the authorities still remember that we exist.
It's not just inconvenient, it's also dangerous. There have been frequent outbreaks of typhoid here, many blamed on filthy water drawn from boreholes. Officials say the city's aging water infrastructure just can't keep pace. Zimbabwe's long economic crisis meant there was no money to replace old pumps and pipes. Now, though, help is finally at hand. A team of Chinese engineers is in Harare to refurbish the largest water treatment facility, the 60-year-old Morton Jaffrey plant.
This is welcome news to residents of Harare. However, they will not kiss the water woes goodbye overnight. They'll have to wait 3 years while refurbishment of the water treatment plant is underway.
At the end of it all, water production will increase from 614 megalitres per day to 740 megalitres. Water quality will also improve as there will be less need to add chemical cleaners. The government has borrowed $144 million from the China Export and Import Bank to help pay for the water upgrade.
I am hoping with this money we should be able to get to about 80% of the population. By the end of the year, they should be able to see some change.
For residents like these, enduring a 3-year wait is worth it if it means an end to their daily trips to a borehole. Farai Mwakatuya, CCTV, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Now we'll have the latest from Biz for you just after this quick break, including striking AMCU members gathered to protest planned retrenchments of over 3,000 workers. Striking AMCU members have gathered at various shafts to protest planned retrenchments of 3,300 workers. Now, the Association of the Mine Workers and Construction Union continued the strike this Wednesday after failing to reach an agreement with the leadership of the Anglo-American Platinum Company, Amplats. Striking miners, as we'd said, have now gathered at various shafts in Rustenburg, protesting over the planned retrenchment of 3,300 workers. CCTV's Angelo Coppola is on the story and now gives us the latest from the Tembalani mine.
I'm in a no man's land between the entrance to the Tembalani mine and some of the striking workers from AMCU who are waiting to see and hear what their leaders have to say once they get back from Johannesburg to report back on the meeting that's been happening with the management at Anglo Plats. This is quiet at the moment here now, but there is potential for it to explode quite quickly. We'll have to see what happens. I'm Angelo Coppola for CCTV outside the Tembalani mine in Rustenburg.
The wine industry is flourishing in Morocco, which is also the largest producer of wine in the Arab world. Today, more than 37,000 acres of land are devoted to wine production in a country where the mild climate and high altitudes provide perfect conditions for growing top-quality grapes. The industry is now looking to expand, with many hoping Morocco will join Chile, California and South Africa as one of the major wine producers of the 21st century. CCTV's Jitu Abram has more.
Most of the country's vineyards can be found in the Meknes region, about 140 kilometers from the capital city of Rabat. It is here that the Phoenicians and Romans first planted their ancient vines. Although the height for Moroccan wine was during the French colonial era, when several modern grape varieties were introduced to satisfy the demand of the country's French residents.
The industry is now well developed in this area, and our production is at par with some regions in Europe. We import the kinds of grapes from abroad that are suitable in this area and that can provide good yields and good quality for wine production. This is why this industry is flourishing in this region.
3/4 of the wine output is red, 20% is rose, and the rest is white. The company has introduced varieties such as Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Syrah, and Chardonnay, and says it uses the latest technology to produce wines to satisfy a wide variety of different palates. Today, one of the country's most famous vineyards is Les Celliers de Meknes, which produces almost 70% of Moroccan wine.
We have a very special piece of land, an area that is very specific. For us, the technology is not a means to produce a product that is standard or modern, but it can also be used to explore the land and its specific qualities. Our concern is to be able to make the most of our vineyards, because we have a great potential to produce wines that can satisfy different tastes, different countries, and different cultures, while at the same time respecting our own culture.
The country now sells over 40 million bottles per year, both abroad and at home, primarily to the many expatriates who live in the North African country.
Consumers in the United States are very attracted to our wines. They are curious about discovering different products. Today, markets such as China and Japan, as well as the traditional markets which are France, Belgium and the Netherlands, are becoming more and more interested. We are extremely interested in these new markets, and I believe that we also have a huge potential to satisfy any future demand.
Around 10,000 Moroccans are employed permanently in the wine industry, while a large number of seasonal workers are recruited during the grape harvesting season. Although alcohol is readily available in the North African country, most Moroccans do not consume it in line with the Muslim religious law. Jitu Abraham, CCTV.
And now let's take a look at how markets performed in early Wednesday trade. The Nigerian All-Share Index added 0.41%, while the JSE Africa All-Share was posted at 0.32% weaker. The Nairobi Securities Exchange 20-share index traded 0.15% stronger. And finally, the EGX 30 in Cairo slid marginally to trade at 0.06%. Well, a quick break coming up now when we return. African football body says the continent should have more slots at the World Cup. To football now, and Africa's World Cup qualifying matches will conclude next month. Only 5 teams will represent the continent in the FIFA World Cup in Brazil next year. But CAF Secretary General Hisham Al Amrani believes the time is now right for FIFA to award Africa with more places at future World Cups. Al Amrani also hopes that next year's African Nations Cup or Championship rather, will help further develop the game in Africa. CCTV's Dan Williams reports.
A return to South Africa, less than 8 months on from the Africa Cup of Nations. CAF Secretary-General Hisham Al Amrani used the SoccerX Africa Forum to review the success and failures of the 29th running of the tournament. But he's also been looking ahead to next year's African Nations Championship, an event that only allows locally based players to compete. Organisers hope the concept will help further develop the game on the continent.
This is a product for us that is unique on the worldwide stage of football that we need to further promote, and that's why we came up with the tagline about Africa's home champions. We need to be proud of our playing level in Africa and to promote that level and to give an opportunity to the players to display their skills at the continental level.
The tournament offers a real chance for some of the continent's smaller teams to showcase their talent and for those teams to use the competition as a building experience. CAF are also looking to provide greater assistance off the pitch and having more input with the various football associations.
We need to provide the opportunity not only for the playing level to be increased and for the players themselves, but also from all the different organizational aspects that are needed in different championships to be improved, so that the game raises its level not only from, again, the technical aspect, but also from the organizational aspect and therefore from the commercial aspect, making it a more appealing product.
One of the issues that detracted from the Africa Cup of Nations were the poor attendances at many of the matches. That would appear to be an even bigger problem for Chan, given the lack of big-name players involved. But despite that, organisers are confident that they can create a big match atmosphere.
We are engaging right now with the local authorities and the cities hosting the games to engage the communities. Whether we are now finalizing the pricing of those tickets, but also we are going to provide a lot of complimentary tickets to different schools, different targets of people.
The race for Africa's 5 World Cup spots will shortly be decided. A question that has been raised, though, is whether Africa deserves more places at the tournament, especially given Europe has 13. It's an argument CAF appear ready to take on.
For us it's time, and we are always working very hard and pushing towards the CAF Executive Committee and its president to make sure that we don't have only one more, but much more, as much as possible, as early as possible. The more teams you have, the more chances you have of winning.
And if an African team can reach the latter stages of World Cup 2014, expect the calls for more African representation to increase. Dan Williams, CCTV, Durban.
Let's shift to the China Open, where world number 5 and 4 seeded Lina was looking to reach the round of 16 on Tuesday as she took on Serbian Bojana Jovanovski. And Lee would put on a show for her home fans. Lee survived a late scare to see off Daniela Hantuchova in the first round, but was really troubled against Jovanovski, with the Chinese recording 5 aces in the first set. It took only 22 minutes for her to take the opener 6-love. Across the court, Jovanovski found herself committing error after error, and Lee would only concede a single game in the second set as she cruised to a 6-love, 6-1 win, to the obvious delight of the crowd.
现在还是很高兴自己的状态，包括
I am very satisfied with my condition, both physically and mentally. This year it is a little easier for me. Last year I had to make it to the semis to earn a place at the year-end WTA Tour Championship, but this year I have already qualified. I talked to my coach, and we think this is a bonus for us. What we want to do is to achieve the best we can here. That's enough.
Now, before we go, remember you can stay in touch with Africa Live on Twitter using the handle @CCTV News Africa. I'm Famila Miller. Thanks for watching.